In today's Ugly News, we're going to look at a skincare brand trip gone wrong and whether you should be scared about toxic sunscreen ingredients in your frozen pizza. But first of all, ITV, which is like a TV channel here, one of the main four, have recently released a documentary called Beyond Belief, in which they uncover the hidden dangers of unregulated cosmetic procedures here in the UK. And we've talked heavily about this before, how there is no regulation when it comes to who can inject in your face. But they're not just doing filler and Botox anymore, they're really taking it to the next level and pretty much doing full-on surgery. ITV's investigation led them to Luxury Medical Aesthetics in Clapham, South London. Here, for just £1,500, individuals can enroll in a one-day course to learn invasive fat reduction techniques. It's liposuction. And they're doing this in the client's neck and chin area. Shockingly, these procedures are performed with minimal training and oversight, or not so shockingly given what we already know. Professor Lane Whitaker, a consultant plastic surgeon with over 22 years of experience, when showed the secret filming from the ITV documentary, he was appalled by what he was seeing. He actually couldn't believe that this was even taking place, saying, "I've been a doctor for over 22 years and I've never thought in my lifetime I'd see something like that. How can she be allowed to do this," he says, "with zero training or medical background? It's just beyond belief." He goes on to say that they're not thinking about the patient at all and how much this actually disgusts him. And the footage is even more terrifying when the documentary presenter, who was secretly recording the training, says that she had enough, she couldn't bear to watch anymore, didn't even take part in the actual training, but the woman doing the training says she'll give her a passing certificate anyway. A certificate that she's completely made up because there's no regulations, there's no official certification. The documentary says that recent data reveals a growing crisis when it comes to aesthetics gone wrong, basically. Since 2021, there have been 1,193 ambulance call-outs to businesses with beauty or aesthetics in their name, citing reasons such as chest pain, immediate threats to life, and major trauma. And over the last 5 years, local authorities have received 670 complaints related to aesthetic procedures. Individuals like Kalia Ann Griffiths have suffered severe consequences. After going a fat reduction treatment, she was rushed to hospital with bladder damage. Griffiths says about her experience, "I felt this hot metal rod piercing my skin. I was squealing in pain. The next day, I drove home 4 hours in agony without any pain relief." That's 4 hours, not 4 hours, 4 hours. Eventually, I was taken to A&E after being unable to pass urine. And in response to these findings, Health Secretary Wes Streeting has committed to taking actions against unregulated practitioners, acknowledging the urgent need for stricter regulations to protect public health. And as the demand for cosmetic enhancement grows, so does the responsibility to ensure these procedures are safe and regulated. It's been around for too long now for the government not to have done anything about it. Like, it's actually crazy. And this is why it's so important to seek qualified professionals and for authorities to enforce much stricter standards, safeguarding and well-being of all people. And this is why whenever I talk about my filler, my Botox, which I've been having for, oh my God, like nearly 10 years now, I always get these comments like, "You're glorifying it, blah, 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 blah." I am pro doing whatever the fuck you want, but the reason I talk about it so heavily is because people are gonna do it. And if they're gonna do it, they need to know who to see, what to look out for, and do it properly. And if me talking about it saves a couple of people from going this kind of direction, where you get offered some highlights, lip injections, and then fucking liposuction all in one go for 100 quid, if it saves anyone from those type of people, then I've done my job, you know? And we're actually gonna be talking about how, despite aesthetics becoming more and more popular, there is a new wave of people wanting to dissolve their filler. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But first of all, I feel like we need to talk about that Dauber trip because I was invited on it. Dauber have been called out for a lack of inclusivity on their recent brand trip. This was a huge brand trip. They invited over 50 influencers from all different areas of the world to go to Italy to experience their truffle farms. There was a big dinner and a big thing at the end of it, like soiree, I don't know. But beauty influencer Eleanor Wood recently posted a video over on TikTok about a brand trip she was invited to go on. She doesn't mention who the brand is, but I worked out and people worked out who this brand was. And I don't love just playing other people's TikToks, but I'm going to edit down her TikTok for you to watch before I talk about my experience, because I want her to explain in her own words.
So I got invited on a global brand trip of 57 people and not a single creator was black. And I kind of want to talk about it and explain why this is so wrong. So you would expect with 57 people from all different walks of life that there would be black people that would be in that room. Of course, I never actually went on the trip. I actually ended up getting uninvited after I spoke about the reasons as to why this was wrong and why this needed to be fixed. They told me that they didn't purposely exclude any black or brown creators, and just that it happened to be how they came to the list was how people responded the fastest. They very clearly said to me that if I think that this is discrimination, then I've misunderstood the situation. Last week, unfortunately, the trip went ahead and they decided to replace me with yet another white girl. I know that I wasn't originally on the original list of people that were invited on the trip. I know that I was later added because there was a male creator that dropped out. I then got added in his place. I believe that we should all be making a conscious effort to make sure that our friends feel included. I genuinely do believe that you need to ask yourself, what is more important? Is it these opportunities and going on these lavish brand trips? Or is it being an accomplice to a whole community and not feeling like they're worthy, and also like you call these people your friends? I actually can't believe that I'm sat here making another video like this again, but I genuinely do believe in being part of that change, and I will never shut up about this. I genuinely think that we all need to do better.
Now, me and my brother will always do a similar thing to what Eleanor does before going on big brand trips. Huge, big campaigns, we always ask for a list of creators for a few reasons. One, it's to see who's going on that trip, to check for diversity and inclusivity, and to see if there's any people we don't really want to align ourselves with. Maybe they've done something that we don't agree with, and we don't want to be involved in what they're being involved in. So it's rumored that this trip was the Dauber press trip, and it's pretty much being confirmed after Dauber released a statement, which we'll discuss in a bit. So being invited on this trip, we asked for a list of people going, which they sent, but only the UK names. But they did tell us that there would be a certain amount of people going from Russia, China, and Korea, I believe it was. There are a lot of people going. Now, we never actually got around to looking at this list because we couldn't go anyway. We actually had a family engagement, so our managers just kind of dealt with everything. But when we attended a separate brand's dinner, we met another set of creator twins, actually, not saying names because I don't want to bring other names into it, but they had mentioned that they were also invited on the trip, but they weren't going for their own personal reasons too. What I will say is that the four of us, them, myself, and my brother, are considered people of color, right? Me and my brother, I feel, are a very safe selection for brands to tick off their diversity list, but having looked back at the list of creators that they initially sent us, there were no black creators on there. So going by Eleanor's video, if she wasn't referring to me or my brother as the male creator who couldn't go on the trip anymore, Dauber had 5 chances to ensure that this trip had a diverse group attending. And whilst creators of color, people of color, did attend the trip, there were no black creators. Listen, I understand that there are certain countries where you are probably not going to have the widest selection of black creators, but the UK, if you aren't getting your black creators from China or Korea, I personally would ensure that 99% of the creators you'll get from the rest of the world were black. But also, have you seen the talent amongst black skincare creators, the voices of education and authority that we have here in the UK? It is not going to be hard to get accurate diversity creators who will do your brand justice. Now, I'm just going to stop here. I know it's very unlike my subscribers to think this because we have common sense, but people, of course, in the comments of Eleanor's TikTok and Dauber's statement on Instagram are like, why do you need to force diversity? I'm sick of all this diversity. You're a Korean brand. Why do you need diversity? Your brand doesn't have to target a diverse audience, etc., etc., etc. If you aren't making sure people of color and black creators in particular are on your brand trip, in your campaigns, etc., then you are saying that they are a customer base that you do not care about. It's not to force this woke ideology onto people, it's to have an accurate representation of the audience you want to sell your product to. If black people aren't your demographic, then just say that so we can all boycott you. For those who were saying they're a Korean brand, it makes sense that the audience isn't black. It doesn't make sense. They are a global brand inspired by Italy, made in Korea, and I know this because I have worked with them several times before. They aren't a a new indie makeup brand based in South Korea. They are a global skincare brand who are wanting to reach a global audience. It's in their marketing. It does not make business sense to not want to sell to an audience who would spend a shit ton of money on beauty. In the US alone in 2023, Black women alone spent $4.8 billion on beauty products. They are a demographic brands need if they want to hit the global market. Now, I know this is D'Alba's intention because they have worked with Black creators before, but their statement, which we can't really call an apology, fell very, very flat. They say, we want to address the feedback regarding the lack of diversity and representation at our latest brand event. We understand and deeply regret the disappointment this has caused, and we sincerely apologize for not reflecting the inclusive values we hold as a brand. I'm going to skip a few bits and get to the main bits. Here is what happened, they say. Out of the 57 participants, the majority were from Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asia, with 9 attendees being from the UK. We have reached out to over a dozen names, someone we have worked with before and someone who we have not yet, but due to response delays or scheduling conflicts, not all were able to attend. I want to bear in mind our first communication about this was back in July. They had a lot of time. We had no intention of excluding anyone. While understanding that these circumstances are not an excuse, we are responsible for ensuring that our event reflects the diverse beauty of our global community. And then they go on to say what they're going to do to improve. A lot of people were accusing them of having a very AI created apology statement. I don't know how to spot AI, to be honest with you. Now, I don't know if I was on the original list of UK creators, but there wasn't a single Black creator in that mix. Myself, my brother, the other creators I mentioned were on that list, so they had 4 to 5 chances, like I said, to swap us out for a more diverse set of creators. It sounds like an excuse of, oh, we invited them, but they said no, or oh, they couldn't come. Then you didn't try enough people. Like I said, there are just so many creators to choose from. And it makes sense for a brand trip to invite people who hit certain criteria, right? A certain following, certain engagement level. But I've seen some of the creators on the trip, and I know loads of Black creators who can hit those targets more than them. It just doesn't make sense. If global domination is really what you want from your brand, you need diversity and inclusion in your business, and it needs to be such a natural part of what you do, not because of this woke agenda, but because your audience is global, which means many different races, skin colors, etc. In my opinion, being inclusive is just a given, because why wouldn't you want to be? But for those who are about to comment, oh, they shouldn't have to do blah, 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 well then it's just shitty business practice then. Scientists are concerned over sunscreen ingredients found in pizza. It is as ridiculous as it sounds. Well, yeah. What else can the media say to try and scare the shit out of everyone? How about there's toxic chemicals in your pizza? That's also found as sunscreen, right? I mean, it's true. Technically, there are sunscreen ingredients found in your pizza, confectionery, a ton of other things because it's titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide is actually a whitening agent. It's what gives your sweets that like coating, that white coating, that pop of color. It's in soups, it's in broths, it's in processed nuts, and even frozen pizza. But this somewhat innocent ingredient is raising some serious health concerns. So serious, in fact, that the EU banned it as an additive in food last year. They called it unsafe, saying it might damage DNA and could even be linked to cancer risks. Don't get worried, it's all right. In the US though, the FDA still allows titanium dioxide in foods. They say titanium dioxide is safe in small amounts, but consumer advocacy groups like the EWG are saying, hold up, are we sure about that? Shut the fuck up, EWG. How about you fuck off? I hate the EWG with all their shitty science-based fear-mongering bullshit. Honestly, I hate them. I hate them. Any article that quotes EWG, click off, get out of there. But this has created a bit of a food fight. Good pun there. In one hand, Europe playing it safe like we always do, like we just did with retinol, right? Removing it from our shelves. On the other hand, the US is like, we've got it under control. You know, the dose makes the poison, little and often. It's absolutely fine. Toxicologists exist for a reason, right? But who's right? That's the million-dollar question. Well, here's the tricky part. Titanium dioxide doesn't always show up as titanium dioxide on labels. It might be lumped under color additives or not even listed at all if it's under a certain amount. And this makes it tough for consumers to make an informed choice. And however you feel about this story, I'm always for that. I think everything should be clearly labeled so that we should be able to make an informed choice, whoever or whatever we believe. And remember, it's all about balance, like with our skincare. I'm not saying to toss out every like candy bar you have or slice of pizza because it's going to kill you because it's got sunscreen in it. As these headlines say, life's too short for that. But being aware of what's in your food, that's obviously a step towards making the right choices for you. And especially as the EU ban was really down to the lack of what is considered conclusive data. So whilst there is no data to suggest it's harmful in any way, they claim there isn't enough long-term data to assess its safety safety, despite it being used in food for decades. I'm gonna carry on. I'm alright, but what do you think? Should titanium dioxide still have a place in our food, or is it time just to scrap it altogether? Weird one. That's kind of beauty related, right? Sunscreen in food? Yeah, I can get away with that, I think. Filler is out. As I mentioned earlier, why am I clapping? So we started off the video talking about how there is a rise in certain aesthetic treatments, but filler doesn't seem to be one of them. In fact, having it dissolved seems to be more popular, but is that the right thing to do if you are fed up with the way your face looks after a face full of filler? Over the past decade, dermal fillers have surged in popularity. They're everywhere, nearly everyone has them, right? Offering a really quick fix to enhance facial features, but as trends shift, many are choosing to dissolve these fillers, seeking to return to their natural look. Celebrities like Molly May, as we know, was probably the most drastic before and after. Kylie Jenner, Courtney Cox have all publicly shared their journeys of dissolving their filler, influencing many to follow suit. But with more people having this dissolving treatment done, we are starting to see some of the negative side effects of dissolving filler. Dr. Sophie Schotter, aesthetic practitioner, told The Guardian online that while dissolving filler can obviously be effective, it's not without its risks. Overuse of hyaluronidase, which is the enzyme used to dissolve fillers, can actually lead to complications like facial hollowing, especially in areas like the cheeks and in the lips. Hyaluronidase can lead to facial hollowing and sagging when it dissolves not only hyaluronic acid fillers, but also affects the body's natural hyaluronic acid or collagen in the surrounding tissue. This is obviously an unintended effect of dissolving your filler and is more likely happening when the enzyme is used in excessive amounts or repeatedly in the same area. A recent study actually found that 18% of participants experienced facial hollowing after the use of hyaluronidase to dissolve hyaluronic acid fillers, giving that sunken look to the face, with many people just regretting their decision to dissolve their filler or have filler in the first place. Grace Stewart, who is a social media manager, had her fillers dissolved. She says, "I had my fillers in my jaw, lips, cheeks, and nose and chin. After dissolving them, I noticed my face didn't return to its original shape. It was very disheartening." And this is such almost like an epidemic right now that there are actually Facebook support groups set up for mainly women who have had their fillers dissolved only for it to go horribly wrong. And patients feel like they haven't even got their old face back. It's just this new melted looking face. I actually spoke to Dr. Ahmed recently, who owns several extremely well trusted and popular clinics throughout London. I've been to his Mayfair clinic. He's been doing my salmon DNA injections under the eyes, which I cannot wait to speak to you about. Everyone's like, "You look tired." It's like, because I'm swollen and bruised. And he mentioned that many injectors just go in and dissolve that filler without taking into consideration how much they're using and the area that is being injected to, and how quickly that area of your face can actually reproduce its own natural hyaluronic acid. To oversimplify massively what he said, diluting that dissolver and doing it gradually can really help maintain your skin's natural. I've written value on my script, but it's not value. It can really help maintain your skin's natural volume and dissolve the filler without risking having that shrunken face. And of course, when anything becomes popular in the aesthetics world, there are those who will always take advantage, and dissolving filler is no exception. Agnes, whose name has been changed for privacy reasons, from Melbourne, decided to get her lips done after lockdown. I think I've talked about her before actually. She wanted a bit of like a refresh, but her lip fillers didn't turn out as expected, and she opted for a dissolving procedure using hyaluronidase. Following the injection, Agnes experienced severe pain and a range of symptoms, including dry eyes, blurred vision, and chest discomfort. She now believes these issues stem from the dissolving agent. Hyaluronidase is common, I'm not going to say it right, just excuse me, is commonly used in medical settings to break down connective tissue and aid in the spread of anesthetics. It's frequently employed off-label in cosmetic procedures, though, to dissolve fillers. A study focusing on patients who underwent filler dissolving treatments found that 20% experienced adverse effects. Despite these findings, some individuals report feeling overlooked by medical professionals when seeking help for these complications, especially because it was related to fillers and dissolving agents. And there's very much this kind of like feeling of like, well, it's your own fault. If you're going to get something like that done, it's your own fault. And we've even seen a patient in Russia going viral in a video saying that her skin was pretty much just sagging off her face like a rag. That being said, hyaluronidase is considered safe when used by a licensed and medical professional. So, as with all aesthetics, who you see and who you choose to inject you is top priority. It's essential to approach filler removal with caution, consult with qualified professionals, and understand the potential outcomes and risks. Whilst trends come and go, your safety is of course the most important, and this is an area where I do believe you need to do your research and spend a bit of money. If there's a deal here that's too good to be true, it probably is. So that's it for today's ugly news. Let me know what you think about these stories in the comments below. You can watch some more ugly news here and some general light entertainment here, and I'll see you over there.